The October 24th, 2011 regular meeting of the Frankfort Board of Commissioners to order. First, we'll have the invocation by Reverend Bill Hartung of the Frankfort Police Department chaplain, and I'd like for everyone to please stand and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag. Reverend Hartung.
Let us join in prayer. Our gracious Heavenly Father, we are grateful for life and the joy of living in this great nation. Thank you for the blessings of freedom and the opportunities provided for our lives. We especially thank Thee for all the blessings of life. We pray that Thou would bless the members of this commission as they guide our city in the ways that better our lives. We also pray for our men and women in the service of our country who keep us safe, and for those here in our community that protect us with their lives and talents. Help us so to live that we can provide a climate of life that all our citizens and visitors to our city can enjoy the benefits afforded us and the pleasure of each other's company. For it is in Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you, Reverend Hartung, and please be seated. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Wilder.
Here.
Mr. Hedden. Here. Mr. Turner.
Here.
Mr. May.
Here.
Mayor Graham.
Here, so we're all present, counted for. Seems like we have a goodly gathering of the citizens here this evening. I want to also like to recognize, before we get started, PAC and Troop 31 with their Scoutmaster, Billy Dawkins over here. They attend our meetings on occasion, working on merit badges, government and what have you, citizenship, things of this nature. So we're glad to have you all here. The first item on the agenda is the minutes. We have minutes for the September the 19th, 2011 work session, September 22nd, 2011 regular meeting, October the 10th, 2011 special meeting, October the 10th, 2011 work session. Now, we've had the minutes in our possession for a while. Is there any additions or changes?
Move for approval.
Got to move for approval. Second? Commissioner Hedden. Okay, please call the roll.
Mr. Wilder.
Yes.
Mr. Hedden. Yes. Mr. Turner.
Yes.
Mr. May.
Yes.
Mayor Graham.
Yes, so the minutes are approved. The next thing on the agenda is ceremonial items, and City Manager, Mr. Vaughn.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to recognize Fred Deaton, representing the Frankfort City Police Department.
If Officer Dearborn would join me, please. Tonight we'd like to recognize Officer David Dearborn, who has unselfishly and with conscientiousness and dedication served the police department in this community for approximately 20 years. We're going to miss David. We know that you will, as well as the citizens of Frankfort, and we appreciate his service, and thank you for those 20 years, and good luck in whatever new fortune you're going to make.
I appreciate you so much. We all get these certificates or plaques, and so you can hang on your wall. Remember that we appreciate what you've done. Okay, thank you very much.
We also have for David his retirement badge, which he will substitute for his active duty badge this week.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is citizens' comments. Now, the procedure we normally have is that any citizen can come and address the commission. We would like to, for you to hold comments to 5 minutes. We don't hold exactly strictly to that, but we try to as much as possible because other people may want to speak. So at this time, and when we call your name, or when you want to speak, you come to the podium over here and then identify yourself. And then you'll make your comments to the commission. If any commissioner wants to respond to your comments at that time, they can. Or they can go on and listen to other people, and then we have discussions at the end on the old business and new business and what have you. But so that's the procedure we have. We hope everybody will follow the rules as best as possible. So if any citizen would like to address the commission this time, okay, back in the back first, or just come to the up here. And I do have a hearing loss, and so. And I wear these hearing aids, I'm constantly adjusting them, so if you could sort of speak into that microphone, I would appreciate it.
I'll try my best. Can you hear me?
All right.
All right. My name's Brad George. I live here in Frankfort, over in Bell Point. And I recently received my little canvas paper about the trash cans and the trash program that I'm hoping will be implemented. And I've heard so much negative stuff in the press and like that, or read it, that I just wanted to come and tell y'all that I was really glad to get that survey and that I'm excited about trying this new program. My income's limited. You know, I don't make very much money. There's 3 adults in our house and 2 grandchildren. So we generate some stuff. And we looked at it and we've talked about it ever since the public hearings. And so we started working on our trash then. And that's when y'all were charging us $60 a year to get that. So we started in, and we've cut our trash back now to where we really think that starting off with this program, we can get that $48 can and a couple of recycle bins, and that we'll be doing, we can do that, and we're actually thinking that we can probably scale back 1 can down from that. And I just like the whole notion of not having to buy a trash can anymore and paying only $48 for my service. That's saving me $12 right off the bat. And then I like the idea of what it can potentially do for our community in reducing the amount that we have to send out there to the dump and increasing what we recycle. It scared us at home at first, but then as we started trying to apply what we learned in those town meetings, we have really been able to change our trash behavior, if you will. And so anyway, instead of all the negative I've been hearing, I just wanted to put this one thing into y'all from our house. We are really excited about this and having fun, actually fun, working toward it. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Amelia Berry, and I also live in Frankfort. And like the previous speaker, I've seen a lot of negative comments about this, particularly in the paper, many of which cite young families as a demographic that's going to be particularly harmed by the garbage proposal. This is my daughter here. Obviously, I'm part of a young family, and I just wanted to come here and say to you all that I actually support this plan, as do most of the peers, my peers that I've spoken with about it. The reasons are quite simple. Number one, it's good for the environment. Number two, it's good for our city's pocketbook. And as a mother, those 2 things are extremely important to me. I think we've passed the time that we can pretend like we can throw out as much as we want without incurring a cost. It was news to me that there's actually greater financial cost to the city to dispose of trash as compared to recycling. But that's a great reason right there. There's a financial cost and, of course, the environmental cost. I don't think anyone can, in good conscience, ignore them any longer. And so, you know, as a mom, I'm consciously aware of the fact that my daughter Rosie is going to inherit the consequences of the actions that we're all taking right now. And so I can't imagine, in good conscience, down the road looking at her and saying that I opposed a fiscally responsible plan to reduce landfill waste in our community. So I do hope that you'll pass this measure, and I appreciate that the commission has taken on what is not exactly a politically popular stance to do what I think is best for this community and particularly for our children. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Any other citizens?
Ma'am, you dropped something.
Hi, my name is Carol Anthony, and I'm the director at the Housing Authority of Frankfort. Still dropping things. I too, like the two previous speakers, am very much personally in favor of this change. I actually don't live in the city, but I live the first house beyond the landfill, so I'm all for saving what goes into the landfill. However, dealing with apartments, I just hope, I thought somebody said something to me. I just hope that you all will consider on kind of a case-by-case basis dealing with apartment owners. When I called to get some information, I was told that most apartment owners have dumpsters. I don't know if you're familiar with the Rosewood, Greenbrier area, but there is no way a truck could get in there, much less a place to put the dumpster. And then we have issues of what if somebody uses the recycle for trash, then the housing authority gets charged. So there are just some issues on a case-by-case basis, I think, for larger apartment complexes that I certainly hope that you'll take into consideration. But as far as the overall concept of it, I'm very proud of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anyone else? Yes, sir.
My name's Shirley Calder. My wife and I own a duplex here in town. I live in the county. And I just like to know with these trash cans that you buy, you know, like the $4 ones and what, $12, $8, whatever it is. If somebody steals it, who's going to replace it? Is the city going to pay for it? Well, you know a lot of that's going to happen.
We can try and address that right now.
Pardon me?
We can try and address that real quick without objection, Mayor.
Go ahead.
That's a very fair question.
That's going to happen because people get free trash cans. They're going to take the ones that somebody's buying.
The trash cans will be marked specific to
Well,
specific property.
that's what I was told. We're going to have a chip in it.
Sure.
But who's going to run all over town looking for the chip? You know, looking for the right number.
That's a fair question.
I think if the city if you have to pay for it, they ought to be able to replace it.
I'll just say that I agree.
Yeah, regardless of what, really.
I think the city should be, under this proposal, the city would actually own the trash cans.
That's what
And so
yeah.
it should be, I think it should be our
But I
responsibility
mean,
to replace
I've
them.
told, you know, that there was going to be a chip in it, but nobody's going to go around looking for that certain trash can all over town. And I would say there's going to be some stealing going on when you buy a trash can. You know, usually is something like that. But I just want to know who's going to, be responsible for it.
Well, the city should be responsible for the cans. The cans do come with a 10-year warranty.
Yeah, I mean, I understand if they get tore up.
Sure.
But I mean, what the stealing part's what I'm just concerned about. I mean, I feel like there's going to be something going on.
There may be some of that.
I mean, you can go up Sunset up here to the cemetery. You can look at all them flower vases and see all them gone.
Sure.
That's,
I will say, I think that it is an enforceable problem, and we do have funds budgeted for
so it
enforcement.
will be paid for to the city if somebody steals it.
be okay.
I mean, yeah, the city's the one who owns it, so unless I would think, unless it's vandalized by the, the property owner, then it would be the city's responsibility to replace it. I know that, for example, in other communities that you talked about wear and tear just for briefly there.
Yeah.
I have a friend in Lexington who came home the other day, and they have the similar roll-out cans that we are proposing. And she came home, and her trash can was gone. Later that evening, it was there. The trash let her, the sanitation workers had let her know that, that it had broken. So they took it back to the shop, fixed it, and repaired it, and returned it so that right to
But
where
I
it
mean,
was.
like I say, I know if you tear it up,
Sure.
they'll replace it, it's in the paper, but I mean, it never did say anything about it, somebody took it,
Yeah.
That's what I'm concerned about.
The city's the one who ultimately owns the trash can, so.
But I mean, will they replace it if somebody takes it?
Well, I mean, you got to take things into an individual account. I mean, if we catch the person who steals it and they have the can, then obviously we would return the can. But if there is no can existing, if somehow it is a mysterious disappearance, then it is the city's
Well, I
responsibility.
mean, what do you do if somebody takes it and you come back, we have to do buy one, or,
What do you mean?
well, you have to get another one somewhere.
Yeah, the city would have to incur that cost.
They would give it to you no cost,
No, we would have to incur that cost.
but I mean, the city would?
The city would, yeah.
Okay, in other words, the property owner wouldn't have to then.
I mean, if it was stolen, I wouldn't think that, I mean, how
I
can,
mean, that's my concern right there.
yeah, I believe it would be the city's responsibility.
I would agree.
Yeah.
But still something else that still needs to be looked at. I mean, there's lots of.
I mean, I was told there was gonna be a chip in it, but nobody's gonna run around looking for a chip all the time. They're not gonna run all over town looking for one that's got a chip in it. Tell them where it goes.
I think that that when you pick up the trash can itself, I mean, I guess that Tom, would the regular sanitation workers, would they have the chip reader with them, or how?
The code enforcement officer would have
The
that.
code enforcement officer would have that, okay. All right,
And we can do inventories periodically, just to make sure everything's.
okay.
For what it's worth, I mean, we've been discussing this for months, and we still have plenty of time left to discuss it. And a lot of the concerns that folks are raising now actually came up during a series of public forums in April and have been addressed since then. But we still have, you raise a good question that we haven't directly addressed yet. We still have plenty of time to
But I
discuss
mean,
that stuff. And
somebody
work
takes
it
a
out.
free trash can, it's not gonna cost them. But if somebody's got one that they pay for each month, they're liable to take it and start using it.
I might interject, is
That's my concern, that's what
Yeah,
I'm
I
concerned about.
understand that too. I think the commission has not, can't really 100% address this issue right now because we don't have an ordinance. We don't have, nothing's been put down for us to vote on. It's been, as I understand it.
Well, I mean, I don't really
It's
think.
been making his goal, so I understand your question is
And
legitimate.
another thing is I don't really think that
Yeah.
the owner ought to be responsible for a fine if he find anybody either, because I think it ought to be the one renting or whatever. That way, you get to the main source,
Right.
because the owner can't do nothing about it.
And I think that echoes some of the concerns we heard from the previous speaker too. And that's something else I expect we'll continue discussing, is how this relates to landlords and tenants.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else?
My name is Eric Burke. I live at 111 Daly Avenue. I came and talked to you folks about 2 weeks ago. Again, I come back to question you folks who I consider to be and referred to as young guns. There's 3 of you. The other 2 seem to be going the other way. I, unlike these other people, have no good things to say about this trash, paying as you throw, throwing as you go, whatever. We, for the past 40, 50 years, have paid for our garbage collection in the city of Frankfort with our property taxes. You are still getting those property taxes. Since I was in here, there have been several people that have came to me and asked me to come and request that you all do away with this thing that you all are conjuring up. Because we don't need to pay for what we've already paid for, which is garbage pickup. According to Mayor Graham, it takes $1.6 million to do it. If you want to give us back $1.6 million in property taxes, then we'll talk about letting you do whatever you want to do with garbage, and I'll take mine to the dump myself. But I won't be buying garbage collection from you all. The other thing, I'm a property owner. I've got more than one house I live in, and I rent those houses, or I use them for office space. You're wanting to hold me as a property owner responsible for what Bill May, who may rent my house, puts out in his garbage. That's not rational. That would be like me loaning you my car, Celeste, and you going out and getting a speeding ticket and telling me I got to pay it. That's not equitable, it's not fair, it's not logical. But the main point is we're already paying. When they put citywide garbage collection into effect, like I'm saying 40, 50 years ago, back in the 60s, I believe, they said, we've got some excess property taxes that we can make citywide garbage collection. You don't have to get it from this one or that one. Back then, it was probably $10, $15 to get somebody to come by. Or you carried it to the dump up at the top of Ball Knob Hill and dumped it once or twice a month or once every 2 months. But they wanted to stop these couches, big nice recliners ending up in the alleyway, in people's yards. This is not going to be conducive to stopping that, and it will happen. If you think about some of these people that renters come in, and when they get ready to move on, anything that they don't want, they're going to leave there for their property owner. And it has to be gotten rid of. You're going to fine this property owner because somebody else left 2 dump trucks loads of garbage and beds that they didn't want, broken toys that they didn't want, and you're going to hold the property owner responsible? It's not right. But I have not spoken to anyone other than hearing these other folks that just got up before me say that they was in favor of this garbage collection. It's a double tax. It's an unfair tax. And you should think before you put this on these people, because you folks are elected and you might not be here in a year or so. Because come January, y'all got to start running again. And this is not a good thing to run on. So y'all think about it. The other thing is y'all wanted input from people phoning in and telling you all y'all have all this good input. The only number that I know of that to reach you all is a 1-800 or 875-8500. And is that the only way of getting in touch with you all, to leave you all a message what we think about this garbage collection?
I believe staff have our personal phone numbers, and they're also available online.
I don't do online.
I'm saying you can call the 875-8500 number, and you should be able,
To get our
somebody
number.
should be able to direct you to our
Okay.
personal contact.
We'll get them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I'm here for Ann Wingrove, who could not be here this evening. She,
Repeat your name for him.
I'm Jill Robinson, I'm sorry. And, she's not able to be here, she's over at the hospital, actually. She's having a little problem, but she's gonna be okay. And she wrote a letter to the editor, which has not appeared in the paper. And she did want somebody to come, and she hoped to be here this evening and was not able to be here. So she wants somebody to come and read her letter, or obviously if she was here, she wouldn't read it, she'd just be talking to you. But I'll go ahead and read it, since I'm not that familiar with what she had to say. It says, Dear editor, according to the survey conducted last year, over 60% of us, meaning Frankfort residents, say they recycle. That's great. But of the 40,533 tons we throw away, 38,144 tons went into our landfill, and 2,290 tons were recycled. That means only 5.6% of our trash was recycled. Or think of it this way, for every bag that was recycled, 19 bags were thrown into the landfill. That's not good. A couple of years ago, after participating in a project called Lighten Up Frankfort, our family decided to reduce what we threw in the landfill. We had to change our habits, figure out all the items that could be recycled, and add several additional recycle-only cans around the house. It took attention and it took some commitment in order to make the change, but our household reduced our weekly trash from 3 full cans, and those I guess would be what you call 32-gallon cans, which is what we're presently using. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay. To 1 small bag and 4 recycle bins. It's not only good for the environment to reduce our landfill footprint, but it's also very good financially. Why continue to pay higher costs to put 95% of our community's trash in the landfill when most of it can be recycled? We applaud the City Commission's vision and encourage it to address this issue proactively and responsibly. And it's signed by Ann Wingrove, Kenny Bates, Louis Bates, and Hallie Bates. And Hallie's not in the household at the moment, but she was there all last year. And that's a message from Ann. I have one quick message for myself. I serve on the fiscal court, and we don't pick up our own trash. We have a vendor who picks it up for us. And being in private industry, they're always looking for ways to limit their costs. And over a year ago, they went to the rollouts, and they actually have one guy on a truck. He comes up, he picks it up with an arm on the truck, dumps it out, puts it back. Now, I'm not to say that when we got started there weren't some growing pains. There was always growing pains. And we had some people who called in and felt like they couldn't handle the one size can that we were using. And you know, I'm not even really sure what size it is. It might be the medium sized one that you all are looking at. And we went to the vendor and said, hey, listen, we got some issues here. And they were able to provide us with a smaller can, which is probably the smaller one that you all are talking about. And as I understand correctly, I think there hasn't been too much carpet since that point when we were able to manage that. And I'm not saying that everybody is totally satisfied, but I think there was an adjustment, and people are getting to that point where they're getting good with it. We are presently doing a pilot project like Crestwood in the Heritage, and we rolled out those recycling bins with the wheels like you guys are getting ready to do. And the recycling in that neighborhood went from like 25% to 80%.
Wow.
And we were really pleased. So tomorrow night, we're going into what's called Meadow Glen, I think Meadow Glen Estates, which is just a little bit down the road, because Republic said that we could do that. They would provide the recycling bins, and we're going to walk that neighborhood. We walked it Saturday, we're going to walk it again tomorrow, and see if we get the same kind of response. I mean, I'm really hopeful that we'll get a real good response from that. So we know clearly how expensive it is to put stuff out that landfill. It's a huge expense for the county. And so anything we can do to draw the waste out of that landfill, we are trying to do. And I encourage the city to do the same.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Jack Travis, Cardinal Hills. I'm not in favor of this. I'm not going to lose any sleep over it either. But I'm not in favor of Obama health insurance. I've taken care of myself all my life, 39 years. And I'm not in favor of anybody else putting trash stuff on me. And if there's any money around, I would be in favor, and I don't know how many is out there, of having more cameras entering subdivisions or downtown, start downtown and edge your way out.
Like on the intersections and things like that?
Yeah. Lots of crime.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Yes, sir, please come forward.
My name is Robert Janes. I have 2 rental properties, and I have some questions about the problems with this. Number one, I don't have any idea how much trash my renters are going to produce when I put them in there. They could be, for instance, right now, where I used to have like 3 guys, well, most of their trash is beer bottles and beer cans, which go into recycling, and they wouldn't have any. But if I move in a couple who has a baby into the 1-bedroom apartment, they could go from 1 or 2 bags to 10. Now, how do, then all of a sudden, we don't have enough garbage cans for it. How am I supposed to know, they just put it out there. I don't have any way of knowing that they generate that until I get a call from you saying, guess what, you got a fine because they put 10 garbage bags out there. Okay, the other part I have, it's right there behind 3rd Street here. You can take a look at it if you go by during the day, it's parked cars. People park there to go to work or whatever, come over here, whatever it is. It's cars all the way half of the street, and there's no place for your truck to, I don't know, is that where they're supposed to pick it up and throw it into the truck like they do on the big green ones out the county? Is that the way they work it? Or do they actually just throw it in there with a hand?
There's, initially, it would just be the arm like out in the county.
Well, see, if there's cars parked,
Right.
how are you going to get to it? There's cars parked all the way out, going to reach over the cars and pick it up? I don't think that's going to work. There's no place, there's going to be bumper-to-bumper cars for 50 yards up to the next, wherever the first driveway is. And he's going to have to haul that down that way, or we can't put them in the street, that's obvious. So you got a problem there on parked cars. It's also up on a 6-foot bank, the one on 3rd Street right behind here, it's 323. There's like 6 or 8 steps, so if you got one of those, that's going to be a problem. Or taking it down that 45-degree bank is going to be impossible, because you're going to take you right out into the street or pump you in right into a car with it. So if you're a 100-pound woman or something, it's going to be a real struggle for you to get that garbage down to the bottom of this thing there. And you can't leave them down there on the sidewalk. Now I've got 2 at the point. At this time I have 2 empty apartments. Do I get a rebate if they're empty? Do I get 2/3 of my money back if I get 2 empty apartments? I mean, it's supposed to be throw as you go, if I'm only using 1 out of the 4, how do I call you in and tell you that I only, or do I just say they're empty, I'm going to send you 1/3 of the money? And what I suggest is that you send a bill to the renters if you want to do that. I mean, they all got an address, so why do I have to do it? Contact them, let them pay you the bill, let them decide how much garbage they got, and let them decide, rather than the landlord. Because I can't monitor the trash. Like the man said, I can't tell you how much they're going to be, how much they're going to use, or what. If they do something, and if they got too much garbage, they'll just take it up the street and put it in front of somebody else's house. And they'll get a fine because they don't know where it came from. Unless the police are going to go through it and look see what's in it and find out who did it. So I can see a lot of problem with it.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else? Come forth.
My name's Doris Thurber, and I just have kind of a small view of this that I wanted to share, and that is I work for the Franklin County Women's Shelter, and we brought this idea up in the House meeting the other day, and it really caught the ladies' attention, and a lot of these people have, this is like a brand new concept to even think of recycling, and they've been introduced to this initial idea through living at the women's shelter, but they really like the idea of the challenge that you're presenting to think each time you go to throw something away, is this recyclable? And, you know, it sort of caught their attention to be presented with a challenge and to help in a small way to pay back to the community in a way that they can, at a grassroots level, do. And I just wanted to share that with you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Jeff Garrison, Cardinal Hills. I just have a couple of questions here. Number one, what am I supposed to be doing with my grass clippings and my leaves through the summer as I'm picking them up with my lawnmower? Because number one, I tried the compost pile, and that failed miserably because there are a lot of mosquitoes in Cardinal Hills, and they seem to breed in this compost pile. So, you know, that kind of leaves me a big question. You know, what do I do? You know, do I go out and use a pesticide and kill the mosquitoes? Well, there goes my, you know, my organic garden. You know, can't do that. All right. And then second of all, what if I go in and I clean out my garage and I have a run over of my garbage can? Okay, I go and I buy these $3 bags. I got online the other day, and these $3 bags, I mean, they look like something I put in my bathroom. You know, they're not going to hold hardly anything, it doesn't look like. They look very small. And if I have to go through and clean out my garage or basement or whatever, and I have to have 10 or 15 of these bags, I mean, this is cost prohibitive, you know? What do I do with that? You know, and it's really ironic that Mr. Dawkins is here tonight, because I was in his scout troop years ago, and we cleaned up some of these illegal dumps that used to be in town, and you know, that was, you know, we going out on the roadside and just picking up what people would throw out, you know, illegally because they couldn't get it to a landfill or the city would not pick it up. You know, I foresee that as a little bit of a problem also. You know, I'm not going to say I'm 100% against this, okay? But I've also heard people say, well, such and such city is doing this. Well, you know, that's fine and well. We're not such and such city, and, you know, in Lexington, they're not doing this. You know, they don't have a pay-as-you-throw. It is still incorporated in their property taxes. And, you know, I pay city and county property taxes living in the city. So, you know, where are my taxes going to, you know? Why is my mother that lives in the county able to have her garbage picked up for free and I can't? And I'm paying city and county. You know, what gives? Where are my taxes going? Show me. Thank you.
Without objection, I think a lot of these questions can be answered, but would anybody mind if we just receive all the questions and comments and then kind of answer them as best we
Each
can?
speaker, I just want the commissioners to feel free to address the speaker at this time. If not, we can discuss them later, as we mentioned a moment ago.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, yes, sir.
My name's Noel Jones. I'm a resident of Frankfort, live out in the Arnold Ridge subdivision up behind the new Peaks Mill School. And just looking definitively at the program that's being, well, I would have said offered at one time, but it's gotten to be more than an offer. It looks like if it goes forward, it's become an edict. And this is something ordered up by the city of Frankfort. And I had several questions. I raised them in my letter to the State Journal editor. But what really seems to be lacking is a concise, definitive study. You know, where is the demographic study and report that defines the physical and geographical natures of Frankfort and the neighborhoods of Frankfort and the people who live in them? You know, Frankfort's not built on a level plain. You know, By definition, we're down in a river valley. To get out of the valley, we have to go up the hill. Our subdivisions, our side streets, our feeder streets, many of them actually run up into the hill. Go up into Thornhill Heights. I won't point you to many places, they're out there. There are probably several streets in your own subdivision that would not be conducive to using this type of a cart. It's dangerous. So I asked that, where's the study that sets forth the physical characteristics of the neighborhoods and the people that you want this program to affect? Then, where is your study, the demographic study of the people, of the citizens who are going to be affected by either their physical attributes, age-related problems, or other limiting factors? I've got several family members and acquaintances who would not be able to use these carts, either because of physical conditions or because of the physical nature of their homes. I believe we had some gentleman here a couple of weeks ago who referred to his house down on Ewing Street or Ewing Court, and that he was going to be forced to bring his garbage from an upstairs area down the steps. Try to bring a 35 or a 65-gallon cart down steps. Well, you can stand behind it and lower it down the step one at a time until you get down to the curb. And then you may have some problems down there. And then where is that logistical statement that's going to talk about the implementation? How are you going to roll this out? What are the definitive statements identifying the potential and existing obstructions to these programs? Physical characteristics of a driveway. I know some driveways in Indian Hills that have a 45-degree slope coming down to the street. Come out in winter weather and try to guide that 65-gallon cart down that driveway on the ice or snow, or across the street. Your neighbor over there has to bring it up that same 45-degree slope. Well, their greatest danger is that it's going to roll back on them. But the person coming down towards the street could potentially lose control of that cart and the cart go out into the street, into traffic. That's a real concern. We talked about destruction, damage, problems. Since the city of Frankfort is going to, if this is put forward, is going to insist that we use these carts under penalty of law if we fail to use them, or fail to properly use them, and since the city, as we've already heard tonight, proclaims to retain ownership of these carts, then does that make the city responsible for any injuries or damages suffered by the citizens of Frankfort in using these carts? You told me to use it, I tried to use it. It was out there, my 5-year-old got off the school bus and came in and grabbed it and it fell over on him. These are not playthings. A cart that big, when it is loaded, is a potential deadly missile if it gets away from the person who's taking it down to the street. Heard the question about yard waste. I have a question there because I think someone had made the statement, well, we could use these recyclable paper lawn waste bags. But how do those stand up under weather? How do they stand up when it's raining? And in my instance, I just trimmed out some rose bushes that were really deadly weapons. The stalks were as big around as my wrist in some instances, and I put these things into the contractors' cleanup waste bags so that I'm not putting the sanitation workers at risk. These are just various things. What I'm asking is that do what Commissioner May suggested. Shelve this thing until it's been properly studied, and then come back with definitive ideas and alternatives. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Young. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
My name is Hugh Hudson. I live at 219 Eastover Drive in the Woodlands. This new garbage system, I'm going to use that term, there has been some indications of improvement of recycling? Is that a correct
Yes, sir.
assumption? Bill, is that correct? Okay. How is recycling going to be improved with this system? Okay, that's one question. Seems to me that recycling is not a function of a new pickup system. Okay, do you have to have new garbage cans just for the put the recycled items in? I mean, does it have to be the whole new? Do we have to reinvent the wheel over this matter? It seems to me that the improvement in recycling is a function of new capacity in the recycling plants, the plant itself, whether you can recycle glass or wire or whatever that is. And I work for the Division of Water, and then we were companions with Waste Management, and so we dealt with this recycling issue, but it's not. But I don't see the connection between a new system and increased recycling. You have to have more public awareness, and public awareness is that's a least expensive. This is a very expensive, a least expensive commodity. I mean, if you stress it enough and people are diligent, they can increase in recycling without a new system. And then here's a question: what if the system doesn't work? What? It's like designing a new airplane or a new car, and you get it out there and it just doesn't work. Are you gonna? What's going to happen then? What are the contingencies? If you have a contingency plan, how's it going to work? So and I agree with the gentleman who's talking about he's already paid those taxes. Can we just make what we have work now? Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, ma'am, come forward.
Hello, my name's Ann Clark, and I'm here on behalf of Fred Firm. He has about 20 properties, individual houses located in the city. And we agree with the other landlords that this fee should be passed on to the tenants that live there, because we don't know how much trash they're going to have. We don't know, we would give them the small one, but, they could have 10 or 11 things of garbage. But we just want to agree, let you know that we agree that that should be passed on to the landlord and not to the actual landlord.
Passed on to the tenant?
To the tenant, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Passed on to the tenant instead of the landlord. And because, like I said, we don't know, and, recycling's good, and we would love to get them all recycling and have less trash going. But, it's just hard sometimes to get them to put their trash in a trash can. And so, and being a single mom at one time, you've got a single mother that might have more garbage and have to buy a bag for $3 and maybe have to buy something else for their children. They're not going to buy a bag. they're gonna get what they need for their kids. So that's all I'd like to.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay.
My name's Virginia Coobert, and most of my concerns has been already addressed, but there's another concern I have. When you go to enforce these things that everybody has to follow in order to recycle and put out their garbage, how many more people are going to have to be hired in order to make this work? You know, every time somebody else is hired to do a job, the city's going to be charged more for it. Is that going to be more than what you all are going to accumulate for what we're being charged?
We actually expect those costs to decrease over time because of the automation, the nature of automating the collection system.
But at first, you will have to hire somebody extra to do that, won't you?
In terms of enforcement?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
So, what do you propose to pay them a year? Is that going to be more than what you're going to collect off of us?
I'd say that there are a number of there are a number of upfront starting expenses, like purchasing the new cans, for example.
I can understand that. That would be quite a bit.
And a budget for enforcement. But even considering those expenses, we do expect this to result in a net cost savings over time. I mean,
How many years would you propose that the city would come out ahead doing this?
that depends on a number of factors that are hard to predict, including the price of gas, insurance premiums, actual rates of participation in terms of recycling, et cetera. All we can really do is look at the other cities that have done this before. About a quarter of the country is already doing this, including some entire states, about 7,000 other communities. And so we have lots of feedback and data that shows that some of them realize the cost savings sooner, some of them realize it later. But across the board, other communities, even considering the upfront starting expenses, are saving considerable tax dollars over time.
Well, what's wrong with going with the one that we have now, where we just set our trash out, they come by and pick it up, the people get paid, and we don't have all that extra expense?
I think that, if I may answer that, I think that, and this is something that, as people call me, which I have gotten a number of calls that I've tried to explain, is that we as the city government are charged by volume, by the amount of tonnage we send out to the landfill. And that's one of the driving costs that we have. And so the only way to legitimately find a way to cut those costs is to cut the amount that we're sending out there. And one of the issues about recycling, anything we send to the recycling center, we make revenue off of. So if we can increase what we're sending over there, it was like what Magistrate Robinson quoted in Ms. Wingrove's letter of the survey that was done a couple of years ago here in Frankfort. You have a 60% recycling participation rate, but only 5% of the waste is being recycled. As you cut that amount that's going to the landfill, you're saving money there, while at the same time, cashing checks from the recycling center from taking that waste over there. So that's how those cost savings are realized.
Well,
and why this system is not, there's nothing in this current system where you can throw as much as you want away that would cut that amount of waste. You see what I'm saying?
right. Well, I recycle every week, and things that we put out, some people come by and pick up. They haul off, they get the money for it. The city doesn't get the money. There would be quite a bit of money there that's gone out in other people's pockets that they picked up that went to the city to help pay for our trash. There's many a thing I think you could look at that would take this away from people that doesn't have much of an income to pay for it. Now, there's a lot of people out of work. They're not going to have money to pay for this. They have to have food. What are you going to do about that?
We do expect, and I think we've been getting the survey results back in, and I think they confirm this, that the vast majority of citizens would pay less under the proposed new fee than under the current $5 monthly fee. So we do expect to save the vast majority of folks money in the short term and to save the city money in the long term, even with the starting expenses.
I'm talking about the $5 fee too. I don't think that was fair to the people of Frankfort that's worked and paid taxes all these years, and the way the economy is when they're down, then the city turns around and charges a big fee out of their pocket for tax. Now, $5 may not be much to you all, but some of them that has to live from week to week and wonder where they're going to get their groceries at, that's quite a bit of money. They can take $5 and go to the store and buy them something to eat with.
Sure, and we're talking about replacing that $5 fee. Most people are going to pay less than $5 a month, and some folks are going to have the opportunity to pay no monthly bills at all. In fact, I think quite a lot of people are. So I share your concern, but I think this is part of how we can address that concern.
And I'm like the gentleman that talked about the county taxes. We pay county taxes, and we should be getting something back from that, because they don't handle any of our trash, but yet now we're charged right along that very same amount living in town as they do in the county for county property tax. And I think that ought to be looked at. So I figure there's several ways that you all could get enough money from what's being thrown away to pay for this without charging people for it. And I would start with what's put out at the side of the road every week to be picked up. People come by and pick it up, take it off to junkyards or wherever they accept it at and sell it. And I know some of them makes a pretty good living at it. So I think you all need to think about that. And I thank you, and I appreciate you listening to me.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
My name is Mark Tackett, and I live in the county, and I too have multiple properties in the city of Frankfort, and I am not at all opposed to what cleaning Frankfort up or recycling or anything like that, but I just do want the city to go back and really think about how to find the abusers and not find the property owners themselves, because we, the property owners, want it cleaned up ourselves. I mean, I hate going over and seeing my properties with trash scattered out everywhere, but just really taking a lot of consideration on the abuser, not the property owner themselves. The other issue that I haven't heard is I do set-outs, court order set-outs. How's that going to be handled with the city? We're told by the court to set it out to the curb. What do we set it out in? I mean, I'm doing that tomorrow. So that's another consideration you need to have on when you're thinking through this as well. But I'm not opposed to what you're trying to do.
Thank you. Anyone else?
My name is Roger Crawl, and I live in Indian Hills, and I own the Valley View Mobile Home Park down on Home Street. And I've been fighting garbage issues in the city of Frankfort for about 10 years now. Commissioner May and I go way back on this. I'm not against recycling either. I've recycled, I probably go back till the late 70s recycling, and I'm all for it. I just don't think this is the right way to go about it. A 95-gallon recycling bin that costs, who knows, I mean, I've yet to get what these things are going to cost and how it's, we're going to pay for all of it. But I'm totally happy with the 18-gallon red bins we have now. I fill up 1 or 2 of those a week. I get 2 newspapers, I get aluminum cans, and that's pretty much it that I consume. I don't drink, so I don't really have a lot of glass. So I don't really know where I'm going to increase my recycling. I don't consume enough to really go that direction. And Commissioner Wilder keeps mentioning the $5 a month bill. Well, there is no $5 a month bill. There's a $60 a year bill, and you've rescinded it for the last 6 months or for whatever. So really, we're paying nothing right now. There is no $5 a month, and there never was since we pay yearly. But now there will be. There'll be a monthly bill, as I understand this. So the people of Frankfort will get something in the mail. Here's bill, and they'll have to pay it. Now, what happens if somebody doesn't pay it? What happens to the trash? I mean, obviously, it's going to be a health hazard. You can't just leave it on the street and say, well, they didn't pay their bill, like they do if they turn off your electric if you didn't pay it. And, you know, the neighbor's going to see trash just sitting there because the guy didn't pay his bill. You know, how are these issues going to be resolved? You mentioned, you know, saving money on labor costs over a period of time. Well, of course, we'll be getting rid of the cheapest labor we have, the convicts that we pay, I believe, 63 cents an hour that ride on the back of the trash trucks that do most of the work as far as getting off, putting the stuff into the trucks. Now we'll have one driver with some automated system that I'm sure he makes good money. A lot of people have mentioned that, you know, this is pretty widespread around the country, but I'm not aware of any other cities in Kentucky that have pay-as-you-throw. Now, if I'm wrong, please correct me, but any research, you know, that I saw, I don't see anybody else in Kentucky doing this presently. There's a lot of issues. Are you going to repeal the old trash ordinance? I mean, obviously, there was a lot of things that are the law now that you're over in Crestwood, I would assume, violating the law. I mean, you have restrictions on the weight of the cans, the size of the cans. They can't be any more than 32 gallons. They can't be anything more than 50 pounds. What are the new weight restrictions going to be in a 95-gallon container? I mean, that would be huge. I mean, what, 150 pounds that people have got to manhandle around? I mean, a modern refrigerator weighs 200 pounds. Are we saying that you're going to try to get your refrigerator out down to the street weekly? There's just so much stuff. I mean, you're saying, you know, oh, we're not going to, you know, allow people to put out a garbage bag. That's a violation. Somebody's going to get a fine. Well, how do you tell a garbage bag from a leaf bag? What if somebody puts out their yard waste and half of it's got household trash in it? Or the garbage men out there deciding, you know, oh, we're emptying this one, we're not emptying that one. I mean, so much of the stuff that I fought 10 years ago, we never really had that big an issue with. What it comes down to with me was I had a mobile home park, and Commissioner May knows that the city commission decided, or the people in charge, decided that they weren't going to pick up the trash at the mobile home park down on Home Street. And because it was a business, and then because their trash trucks couldn't drive down a private drive, and we went through all these issues, and eventually they picked up the trash. So that's what kind of happened in the last ordinance. You know, in other words, if you put out a box full of trash, that's not really allowed. If you you know, do a lot of different things, if you put out a limb that's too big, the trash men were trash men. They picked up the box, they threw it in the back of the truck, they went on. That's not going to happen. Well, maybe it will happen. Who's to say? When somebody just puts out a bag of trash next to their thing because they went over. And to give us 18 gallons as our overflow, I mean, somebody mentioned those are tiny. 18 gallons is what a trash bag is in a kitchen. It's what our recycling bins are. That's it. You get 12 of those a year, and then after that, how do you clean out a basement? How do you clean out, you know, somebody moves in, you have Christmas. And speaking of Christmas, what do you do when you have a holiday, when trash isn't picked up? You know, there's a lot of issues there. What about snow days when the trash can't get in? You know, there's just so many things, and to just say, oh, here's your overflow, it's 18 gallons. People are just going to look at that and laugh and pay $3 for that? I don't know anybody that's not going to just take it and say, well, I'm going to put it in my neighbor's bin. Of course, I could go on with this for ages. As the man mentioned, you know, what about evictions? I have rental property. How's that going to work? We've already got a really good recycling rate. I talked to I've heard different figures, but your recycling coordinator said it's running about 30 to 40%. So what are we shooting for? I mean, you know, if you're unhappy with that.
It's about 6%.
What?
Our recycling rate's about 6%.
Well, I mean, I'm just talking about what one of your city officials told me. I don't know if he's here tonight, but that's what, you know, he said it was running at. And I said, well, what is your target? And he didn't know. I also have handouts for the commissioners. Obviously, the State Journal has come out totally against this in their editorials, in their letters to the editor, and their comments. I don't know, would you all like these, or how do we do it?
You can hand them out here.
Of course.
And thank you very much for coming up here.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
What do we need, how many do we need, 5 each, 7 each?
Just 7 if you have it. Sure.
Yeah, I'd like to recognize the city manager in a minute.
For clarification purposes, we'd like to remind you of what the standing ordinance is presently, so I'll ask Solicitor Moore if he would remind us what that is.
The ordinance that's currently in effect is that there is a $5 fee for garbage collection, and that $5 fee is effective from July 1 of 2011, and it continues in effect unless the city commission takes some action to change that ordinance or to waive the fee that's due.
That's when there's.
Pardon me? Well, please come forth, yes. Well, first, let me see if any other person before you come back a second time, okay? Is there anyone else that has not spoken that would like to speak at this time? Okay, then we don't want to have too many people coming back a second time, but if you got something else that's different, then please do speak.
My name's Shirley Coleman, I live in the county. And I'll tell you, I've watched these trucks and got the arm on. And you know, you hadn't got as many electric wires in the county as you got in the city. And I've seen them hit a whole lot of them. So you better, you know, that's just something you better be looking at. Because I mean, them arms, when they come down, they hit them electric wires. That's just something to think about.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, now, have we, everyone had an opportunity to address the commission?
Can we take a moment, Mayor, to answer some of the questions that were asked? While we still got folks
Just
here.
a second here. Would the commission like to address these right now? We have an agenda here that we have a chance to discuss old business, which this would be old business or new business, what have you later, but if the commission would like to respond here right now, Commissioner May.
Is everybody, did someone else want to speak? I'd rather just let the citizens.
Everyone I
speak
think
first.
who's wanted to address the commission has spoken, I believe.
Did Mr. Jones said he wanted, did you say he was going to get to speak again? Did you say you wanted to speak to him? Oh, I'm sorry. I couldn't hear. I was looking at
I
someone.
think everyone has had an opportunity to do that, yeah. Commission, would you all want to go into discussion right now and to answer these, or you want to continue on with the rest of the agenda and then address these things later? Right now?
I think some folks asked questions that we could go ahead and answer.
Hey, Mr. Haddon, how you feel? Can I do it now?
We can, I thought for sure it would just at least come up in new business or old business. But if you want to discuss it while everyone's here, let's go ahead.
I mean, it's just, folks asked some very specific questions that we've already answered. And while we've got them here.
Okay, we got three. All right, let's commission want to address these specific complaints or concerns. Commissioner Wilder wants to be recognized.
Just to answer some of the easy to answer questions, and some of this warrants further discussion. And like I said, we're going to continue discussing this, and we still have time to discuss some of this stuff. But in terms of just some of the really easy questions that we've already answered and addressed. What to do about grass clippings and yard waste. We've discussed letting folks, if they want to, keep their old garbage cans to set yard waste out in those, if they'd like. Other options are to set yard waste out to the curb in manageable piles, which is what we currently do to collect. That's one of the current options for yard waste. And then we'll pick those small manageable piles up. And then a third option is to set it out in a yard waste bag, and to also address how do you tell garbage bags from leaf bags. Yard waste bags are available at places like Lowe's, Kroger's, hardware stores, etc., and they're large paper bags that are pretty easy to tell apart from plastic bags. And the value to the paper bags is that they can be shredded along with the yard waste and composted. One thing that I think a lot of folks don't realize, kind of similar to recycling, is that the city wastes your tax dollars every time we send yard waste to the landfill, because we send a significant amount of organic matter to the landfill, and we have to pay fees to the landfill for them to take it. So any yard waste that we can keep from going to the landfill, we'll compost separately and turn that into an asset for the city instead of a liability. In terms of garage cleaning, we have discussed, well, in terms of garage cleaning, what do you do about Christmas, et cetera. We have discussed having 4 free mass pickup days, one of them particularly in coordination with Christmas, because lots of folks have excess waste after Christmas. So we've talked about having 4 days a year, one, after Christmas, one for spring cleaning, one in the fall, and one in the summer, where we'll pick up just anything and everything that's set out to the curb. So that's one opportunity to clean out an entire garage, or to get rid of a bunch of Christmas garbage without having to pay an extra fee for that. And another option as well is and I guess I should also note that we're still talking about picking up oversized items for free. So like now, we'll continue to pick up couches, tables, beached whales, and whatever else you set out to the curb that doesn't fit in the trash can for no fee. So I think that's probably also relevant to something like house cleaning or garage cleaning. In terms of setting the parameters of the program, most of those have been discussed and informally set over the last few months, and hopefully we expect soon to have a solid document that folks can refer to see those parameters, and are also hoping that the paper is going to start reporting a lot of this soon as well. How will this improve recycling was one of the questions. It would improve recycling in 2 ways. Lots of studies, and there's lots of analysis to back this up, show that when people have improved containers for recycling, that alone can increase recycling rates. So if if people, just the mere fact alone that people would be getting carts instead of the little red bins, that alone should drive recycling rates. But the big thing that would drive recycling in this is that, and this is something, is that people would save money by recycling. And that's the big difference. I mean, right now, when you recycle, you save the city tax dollars. You decrease our tipping fees at the landfill and you increase our recycling revenue. But right now, if you do that, you don't save any of that money yourself at all. And so what we're trying to do here is put together a plan that actually rewards you for recycling, so that when you recycle, you don't just save the city tax dollars, but you actually reduce or even have the opportunity to eliminate your own monthly bills as a result. I mean, so you ask how you increase recycling, and this is like how do you incentivize any number of things in life or society. You make it so that people can save money by doing it. Lots of folks who don't care about the landfill, who don't care about the environment, who don't have kids they're going to have to live here in 50 years, they still care about their pocketbooks. And if we can reduce or even eliminate their monthly bills simply by offering a better recycling option, I think lots of folks, and as we've heard today, lots of folks are even looking forward to taking advantage of that. I'm just trying to answer the questions. I mean, people made lots of comments. I will say that the billing, and in terms of exactly who's going to handle the billing, I mean, that's one of the things that we're still discussing. I'm still absolutely in favor of at least allowing that bill to be sent directly to renters instead of requiring it to go through landlords. Our city attorney keeps insisting that it's easier for us to collect bills that are sent to landlords than it is to collect from renters, and I'm sure lots of landlords are probably not in agreement, right? And I'm sure that's true. I'm sure that's true. But as far as I'm concerned, I mean, if we're faced with a decision between doing what's easier for staff and doing what's easier for the community, I think we should err on the side of the community. To make a lot more sense to let those bills go directly to the renters. I mean, I think that's just more fair in the first place anyway. But that's something that's still being discussed. The weight restrictions. Somebody asked what the weight restrictions on the cans would be. Those are set by the manufacturers of the carts themselves, and the weight restrictions really have to do with how much a cart can bear. It would be very unusual for a cart to actually meet those weight restrictions, but they're in place so that somebody doesn't try to throw out a whole cart full of bricks, or somebody doesn't compact an entire car into a brick like this and put that 1,000-pound cubit in the bottom of a trash can. But even the full cans, and we've seen this in the county and in Crestwood. And even the full cans, are manageable. Even the full 95-gallon cans are manageable for a lot of folks. In terms of the physical characteristics of the city and the population demographics, those are kind of two separate concerns. I will say, first of all, that we've also been discussing making accommodations for elderly and disabled and folks who otherwise have a hard time moving the carts around. And some folks are going to. And I mean, to be clear, the small 35-gallon cart with handles and a wheel on it is obviously much easier to move than the current 30-odd gallon cans that you have to pick up and carry. And we've already done, as has been noted, we've already done a pilot project in the Crestwood neighborhood with these carts. And the carts in the Crestwood neighborhood were the medium and large size carts. So they weren't even the smaller, easier to move 30-odd gallon carts. And that's also an older neighborhood. We've got a really healthy elderly population in the neighborhood. And the approval rate for those carts was at about 90%. I mean, folks across the board were very happy with them and found them very easy to move. And yet, even then, we're prepared to make accommodations for elderly and disabled and folks who would otherwise have a hard time moving the cart. Regarding the gentleman who has to, carry his garbage down a flight of stairs, this new plan isn't going to change that fact. No matter what, he's going to have to carry his garbage down the stairs. He has to carry it down the stairs now. He'll have to carry it down the stairs in the future. I can't imagine anything we can do for the garbage fee short of hiring people to walk up to people's houses, into their houses, and take their garbage out of the street that won't require folks to deal with that dynamic. So I hear the concern, but I don't really think that's particularly relevant to the fee. In terms of physical characteristics of the neighborhood, no, we have not done a formal study of the physical characteristics of the neighborhood. I mean, the kind of studies you're talking about. I mean, people are concerned about us spending money now. We start spending, tens of thousands of dollars on studies. I think then we'll really start hearing some heat. But most of us have walked the entire city by nature of having campaigned in it. So I think we're all fully aware of the fact that this neighborhood has some level streets, it has some hilly streets. We know what the physical characteristics are, and Frankfort is not particularly different than any number of other cities. I mean, it's not to compare Frankfort to San Francisco in any number of ways, because I wouldn't. But I will note that in terms of hilly streets and in terms of a lot of those problems, San Francisco does this, and they have much hillier streets. I mean, you think we've got some hills in Frankfort. I mean, I've been out to California, and there were some streets that I couldn't even get up with my car. So other cities have that problem much worse than we do, and still manage to use rollout carts and still manage to save money as a result. And in terms of the population demographics, I guess I'll just refer back to the Crestwood survey. And I guess just to make one last kind of general note, it's no secret that we held a series of public forums back in April where we asked folks, how they wanted to see us handle garbage collection and fund garbage collection. And a majority of folks then said that they wanted to see a system that would encourage less waste and reward more recycling, and voice support for a pay-as-you-throw system. That doesn't mean that 50% of people said that, because we had a bunch of options on the table. I'm saying that was the option that received the most public support at that time. And also, obviously, most of us campaigned on the idea during the last election, and the three folks who campaigned on this won by the three healthiest margins. And I realize that wasn't the only issue in the election, but it was a particularly big one. But I think one thing that folks need to keep in mind, and I think some folks have maybe lost sight of since the public forums, is that we're not just considering this concept in a vacuum. I mean, we also have to consider the alternatives. And the alternatives are not pretty. I mean, that's the thing. We put all the alternatives on the table in the public forums. And thoughts like getting rid of the fee and raising taxes to make up the difference, that was not very popular. The concept of cutting services, not very popular. And keeping things the way they are was one of the options. And we've heard some, we've definitely gotten some opposition to this plan, but we haven't been getting nearly as much opposition to this plan as the original garbage fee originated during the last term. And we had dozens of people come to public meetings over a much shorter period of time to voice opposition. I don't recall anybody coming to voice support for it. We've had a much more mixed response to this, and I realize that this is something that would still make a number of people unhappy, but at least there is also a measurable level of public support for this as opposed to the previous fee. My point being that no matter what we do, whether or not it's this or one of the other options that were presented at the public forums, we're gonna make a lot of people unhappy, and that's just a fact. I mean, we're gonna have to start making some difficult decisions in order to shore up, the city's future. I mean, not just environmentally, but economically. I mean, and really, for me, this boils down to a long-term cost-saving measure. No matter what, we're gonna have to make some of those hard decisions. And even if we choose not to do this and start looking at cutting services instead, or start finding a tax rate to raise, I mean, or reversing all four of the commissioners campaigned against the current fee and the current $5 monthly fee, which is a monthly fee that's billed annually. I mean, that would be a hard sell too for all of us to turn our back on what we told folks during the campaigns and to ignore the results of the public forums and just continue going on doing things the way we're doing them. I mean, no matter what, a hard decision is going to have to be made. I am confident that this plan would save most people money. Most people will pay less than $60 a year under this plan. It'll save the city money in the long term. And a lot of the folks who are unhappy with this, and I've spoken to maybe 30 or 40 people over the last couple of months who've called me various measures, and I'd say only 5 people were still upset after the conversation. I mean, once most folks realized that we're still going to pick up everything we've always picked up before, including recycling, including yard waste, including oversized items, that we're going to charge less than they're currently paying, and then we're going to provide a new easy-to-move can to boot. Most people are pretty fine with it at that point. Some people are still going to be upset. Folks are going to be upset no matter what we do, even if we choose to do nothing. But I think the plan that's on the table has taken the public's concerns into account. We've tried to address, in terms of the pros and cons of each decision, we've tried to address the cons as best we can. And it's good that people are here voicing these concerns because we still have time to discuss them and take them into account, like when it comes to billing, landlords, renters, et cetera. So thank you all for coming and taking the time to share.
Commissioner Mays second, and then Commissioner Graham, Mayor Graham, and then Commissioner Hedden.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks to everyone who came to speak tonight, whether you were for or opposed or had questions about it. And I do respect all sides on it, and this is a situation where I think from what I can tell, and maybe I'm oversimplifying this, but it seems like the simplest way to handle this is what I've said before, is to keep the system where we have now. We don't require people to have certain rollout cans, and just when we have the recycling education start, when we have the sustainability coordinator, to try to see if we can increase recycling education, because even if the system passes where people can get the 35-gallon container at no cost, the 65-gallon container at $4 a month, $48 a year, and the larger container at the $12 per month, there's still nothing in there that's going to make anybody recycle that I can see. I mean, the only way I can see to make people recycle, and I would be totally against this, would be to do what they do in some states, for example, in New Jersey, where it's mandatory recycling, and then if people put recyclables in their garbage cans, and they get fined. I'm totally against that, but I'm saying that I don't see how the system that is being proposed right now would encourage recycling unless we gave larger recycling cans for free as an option. I know currently the city will give a larger can if people pay, and maybe.
No, they're all free.
Wait a minute now,
Well,
I've had some people have had to pay. They said they had to pay for. So, could I ask you a question, Mayor, and then go back to our. Do Public Works folks if someone asks for a larger recycling container now, is there a fee to that?
Currently?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
What about under the proposed plan?
No.
So that's what I was saying, like right now, currently I didn't mean like under the proposal, I was saying like currently right now, people have to pay to get a recycling bin. And some people did that, but I'm saying if the city were to keep the system where it is now, so those folks that have limitations, physical limitations, or geographic limitations, can put their trash on the street in the morning when they go out and put their bag, just use bags, and then we continue to pick up the system as we are now. Then we could give free recycling, larger recycling containers, to see if that would encourage people to do more recycling. Because the commission, I think has been, the ultimate goal is to try to get more recyclables and less trash going in the landfill, which is why we started the recycling program years ago. I was pleased to be one of the 3 votes to do that. So I wholeheartedly support recycling for those that want to do it, and encourage people who aren't doing it more to please do that. But if we were to leave the system as is and give free larger recycling containers, which we're already giving, you can have unlimited ones, but for some people that's still difficult for them to use the smaller containers. It's just a thought, because I don't see how we're going to make anybody change unless they're really willing to do it, because this current system with the 35-gallon containers and 65-gallon containers being less than what people would be paying now, unless something has changed. And I have not looked at these numbers this week, but last week one of the commissioners brought up that according to staff, the response rate so far has been received was about 80% of the respondents were saying they were going to take the 35-gallon container or the 65-gallon container. And then if that's the case, that's going to bring in less money than what the system is bringing in now. And if people don't have the incentive to recycle, we're still going to be putting the same, I don't know if it will be or not, but it would seem to me that you'd still be putting the same amount of money into the recycling program and the garbage program unless we can get people to recycle more, which is a good goal. And if we just wait and see how it works with the sustainability coordinator trying to do more recycling education, then I'm hoping that will increase recycling and then give the free recycling bins. I know a few years ago we had a person who worked in Public Works, and I know Mr. Hackbart worked in Public Works, then he wasn't the director, but we had a person who was going around to schools and civic clubs to promote recycling, and we did see an increase in recycling participation. So I guess that's what I would rather see, and it would be on those folks who do have the limitations. That's where my concern is, and I do support more recycling and taking less garbage to landfill, but I don't think we need to force people to do this system right now. And I just have one question maybe, to the staff. What is our participation rate in recycling? I mean, do we? I know somebody said 6%, somebody said 30 to 40%, and
Well, 6% was what was quoted as what out of the waste that was.
Okay.
Was
Okay, I just want to get that.
actually
Okay, I want to clarify. So, do you know? Do you have a recycling participation rate? A number, and then if you know, and to just.
We've taken counts from time to time. One thing is hard because some people don't generate enough recycling every week. So when you go out and do an audit, you're not going to really get a real sense on the recycling participation rate. But I would say it's around 33%.
Do you remember when we had Ms. Nelson working here? Do you remember?
No, I do not remember because our program's changed.
I was going to say it's hard to compare that.
We do it every week now, where it was an A or B week, like the county currently does. So, to me, that encourages recycling, having service weekly.
Thanks. But I do appreciate the different points of view on the commission and from the citizens, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Then you come in and say, okay.
Oh, one more thing. I did say, I'm sorry. I did want to say one thing. Well, on Crestwood, I know people said they like that, but Crestwood is relatively flat for the most part, and I don't know if that made a difference there or not. Somebody said, oh, okay. That's all, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, now, I'll make a few comments too. I do not support the change of what we're doing now. I wouldn't be in favor of keeping what we have, but just a few statements. Now, not that I don't think pay as you throw might be a good concept. I think that we're trying to go too fast with it, although some say, well, we've been talking about it for months, but I still think there's too many questions about that. And in response to the questions this evening, Commissioner Wilder was responding to those. I think we all understand it's still in flux. There's nothing been written down to answer to me all these questions. And so when comments are being made by one commissioner, for it to actually be implemented, there will have to be sometime, somewhere along the road, 3 of the 5 to support that. So perhaps perhaps he has 3 votes here for everything he said, but we don't know that at this time.
I'm going to object to that, Mayor. But you know that isn't true. Okay.
Just let me speak. So that's one thing. The second thing, the 3 public meetings that we had, I attended all 3 public meetings. I do not recall there being, we've had discussion before. At each of the meetings, some people attended all 3 meetings. And I do not believe we had much over 100 people. I don't know that. I did know that at one time, because I kept the numbers. I was curious about that. But even if it was 100, and I don't know if you could say with certainty that this new plan is what they wanted. I'm still quizzical about that. The third thing, I'd like to ask a question. Mr. Hackbart, I do not know the answer to this question. Or Mr. Dawson, one of you, tell me, how much does it cost the city to send our refuge to the landfill? How much does it cost annually?
Our disposal in our line item in our budget is around $300,000 a year.
300,000? Yes. Okay. So it costs us a year $300,000 to use the landfill. Now there's some, there'll be, and everyone will not be in agreement with this, about how much space or whatever, how many more years we can use the landfill. But I have, a person came and talked to me back some months ago, that done a lot of exploring. It said at least 40 years that, we could send things to the landfill. Now, second question, I do not know particularly the answer, I got an idea. On recycling, does the city make money recycling?
The city receives a check.
Pardon me?
The city receives revenue, I guess you could consider that making money, but there's also a cost to the collection of recycling as well.
Okay,
so
okay, if it costs to collect it and then we sell it or whatever, take it there, what's the end result? Is it more costly? I mean, I'm not against recycling.
Just in ballpark figures, it probably costs to collect the recycling curbside and transport it to Lexington and then pay the fee in Lexington to process and market the material, approximately $300,000 a year. And we receive in recycling revenues a year about $150,000 a year. Plus, I guess that figure is including what we don't pay taking the material to the landfill. So that's about a ballpark.
Yeah.
250 to.
So it costs us $300,000, we get back $150,000
in savings or revenues.
But we don't have to send as much to the landfill.
That's correct.
So that's the thing. Okay. I say that I've raised this question because of some of the comments. You talked about how much savings this is going to be for the new plan is going to be for our city. Now, recycling is fine, and so I'm trying to get my arms around how much saving this is going to be, and so they're really in that aspect, it's not a whole lot of savings. I mean,
not right now.
Not now. I know, not now. We're talking about in the future, perhaps, but not now. Okay, thank you. That's all I needed to know on that one. All right. The next thing, it said, some people don't have to pay anything. Well, I've gotten 3 phone calls in the last 2 days, and which they said, the person called and said, Well, if I get the 35 gallon, then I don't have to pay anything. And said, but I have a child that's, and some grandkids are living with me, and then another relative. Said, I'm going to take that 65 gallon one. It's going to cost me $144 a year. Said, picking up of garbage, and this is what this person said, and one person said it on explicit, the other was in the same idea. Said, I don't want to subsidize those who are not having to pay anything. It's a service. If I have to pay, I think everybody will pay something. So I'm just saying that is an issue there. And to say that we are going to recoup any of the losses over time, we can't say that. With approximately, I think, 10,500 households, right? Is that right back there? About 10,500 households. We talked about this in a work session or other session 2 or 3 weeks ago. If you don't get some funds coming in, I mean, we could wind up not having as much money as we have right now to do this. It could be. Now, the pay-as-you-throw system, when we first started discussing this 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, when people were running on office for this concept, we're saying that if pay-as-you-throw, everybody's going to pay, is going to pay for the cost. The cost for picking up our refuse, our garbage, 2 years ago was $1.6 million. Now, I think it's gone up from that right now. So, in my thinking, when this was implemented, this was first started coming on, I thought, well, this pay-as-you-throw is going to cover all that cost. Well, the $5 that was put in 2 years ago that was unpopular, only collected, supposed to be $600,000, didn't come to nearly what, they say the cost to pick up this, the garbage. But the idea of that, at that time, which wasn't popular, was we're trying to balance the budget. And that's it, we balance the budget with that $600,000, and hopefully revenue flow will keep coming in years to come, and we'll adjust. But when we started with this pay-as-you-throw, we got into it, then it was come back and said, just make it revenue neutral. Bring in as much as the $600,000. I think that's right. As I recall, that's what we said. And so, it's all a guesstimate right now. We don't know how many people will take, if this is implemented, how many people will take the smallest and not pay, not have a charge, or how many take the other. It's unknown. It's an unknown factor. It's throwing a dart and a board, in my opinion. Let's see. So we really can't say, if it's going to cost less than $5, then it will cost more. We can't say that just yet. And then there's one more or two, four. Let me find 5. About making economic decisions. We really are going to have to make some economic decisions. Some has already been made, and I made this statement before, and we passed a balanced budget in June. We have since gone back and made budget adjustments that if we were to start working on the budget right now for next year, I think I'm correct in this, we're already $1 million anticipated more than what we think the revenue would come in. Revenue's been flat. And so with the budget we had passed in June included $550,000, which was anticipated the $5 collection fee from last January to this December. That is no longer on the books. So that's roughly $600,000. If we buy these rolled out cartons, it's $200,000. They are not, but that's not in our budget. It's roughly $800,000. We did not, in our budget we passed, did not include 2% raise for employees. It was 1%, but it wasn't in the budget. It's going to try to be covered otherwise. So now the 2% is in the budget. That's $200,000 this year. That's $1 million. The cost for mail out, if we do this by on a monthly basis, estimated is something over $7,000 a mailing. Now we have 2 mailings a year, $15,000. If it holds, now I'm just telling you what figures that I know that I've been told. If it holds, then the mail out would be $90,000. So now we're over $1 million. Revenue projections, we say we have surplus in our rainy day fund. Yes. But let me mention to you, we have in the last few years increased the ambulance fee. And over the last 3 or 4 years, averaged about $640,000 a year. We had the $5 garbage fee, which brought in $550,000. 2 or 3 years ago, we started getting first $200,000, isn't that right, Mr. Scaff? $200,000 the sewer department gave to the city. Now it's $300,000. So you take $640,000, you take $550,000, and then you take $300,000. So part of that big bump we have is from that way. It's not from revenue coming in to fulfill that we normally used to get for our regular budget. And we've been buying equipment and things out of other funds, not from the general fund. Now, I'm going to talk too long, but I'll just say, yes, those are some concerns I have. I know there's a rationale for doing what they're proposing. I'm simply saying I am not for that. And I'll give you some of my rationale. And Commissioner Hedden.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to thank everybody for coming out and for everyone who's sent emails, phone calls. I've probably talked to, gosh, it seems at least 40 people on the phone. I've had several emails. I can't even respond to all of them. There are many things I feel that we are still overlooking, such as liability issues. The cost of those liability issues. What if a 68-year-old woman went out and rolled out her can? She fell with the can fell on top of her, broke her hip, she's in the hospital. Who's going to pay that cost? Is the city going to have to pick up those costs because that was our can that fell? I mean, there's many things. Also, the landlord-tenant agreements that we need to look at. There's several people who own property. There's several people that rent. I still want to look at hardships, not based on poverty, but hardships based on people's situations. If I were to have twins again, I'm sorry. It's a fixed income that I live on, and if I were to increase any more cost, I couldn't do it. Or what if, I said, what if somebody's parents got cancer and they had to move in with me, and I had home health coming in every day? That's an increased cost that somebody may need multiple 95-gallon containers just to fill up with soiled linens. I've also thought that once-a-week pickup was a really good idea. I don't get any support for that, saying it doesn't justify the program. Because once a week, at the last of every month, the court system would also know that anybody who owns property could throw their stuff out and have it ready for the next of month for inspections. And another thing I think we may be failing to do is wondering what the next commission would do. If there's if come July, because I don't know how this is going to pass by January, to get it implemented, what's the people beyond us, not even just the next commission, but the commission after them? What are they going to do? Are they going to look at making your free can a $12 can and making your $12 can a 36-gallon can? It just seems like it's an easy bunny hop for anyone who comes in to say, hey, they're already paying it, let's go ahead and make them pay a little bit more. I mean, it's something I think we really need to look at as well. So thank you, everybody.
I just wanted to, as the other commissioners have stated, and I'd like to do the same, and thank everyone for coming and sharing your opinion. I've also encouraged people to email me and call me, and have gotten a number of emails and calls. If I haven't returned it or haven't returned your email or phone call, trust me, I'm working diligently to get to that, but we have had a large amount due to the various opinions on this issue. You know, I've felt like I've had to explain this several times, but the reason why I wanted to run for the city commission is because I wanted to make a difference in this community. And I felt like that I had, while young, an experience in business and that would be beneficial to this body and to this city. When coming into office, one of the main things that struck me was how many tough decisions have been put off for years. I mean, Mr. Scalf, we can talk about sewers all day long, and how upgrades and stuff that needed to be done was never done. You want to know why you all pay expensive sewer fees? Why we all up here pay expensive sewer fees is because, you know, it was too tough of an issue to deal with for such a long time. Too many people did not want to, you know, inconvenience anymore. And I know that changes are hard. I do know that. And the same goes with the city's health insurance program. Certainly caught a lot of flack for that. But the health insurance program, as I said at the last meeting, hadn't been changed since 1997. Now, I know all of you all in here who are not city employees have seen a change in your health insurance system since 1997. Deductibles increasing, premium increasing, you know, things like that. Again, one of the major drivers in cost for our city is health insurance costs. So if this is an important issue, why did it take so long for it to be addressed? It was finally addressed this last budget issue where we put the city on a fiscally responsible path with regards to health insurance. Sure, it's not perfect, but it's in the right direction. One of the things that we've seen as a commission when studying this issue of pay-as-you-throw versus other systems is that almost, well, pretty much in every single community that has adopted this, I mean, we talk about incentivizing recycling. They've seen a major increase in recycling and a major decrease in what you were producing and sending to the landfill. And it's really been a huge benefit to these cities' budgets and to the taxpayers. I do want to take a second to talk about the current fee as we have it in place. I think it's fair to say that the fee, as Commissioner Hedden brought up, that, you know, she did make a very good point as to say who is to say what the next commission will do. And as costs continue to rise, and believe me, folks, they will rise. I mean, we pay cheap rates as it is now for tipping fees, but it's just like your utility rates. They're not going to stay that way for longer. So how do we put ourselves fiscally in the best position to handle those increases down the road as a city budget? And I think that makes it pertinent to Commissioner Hedden's question, because if there are no cost controls put in place, then you're right. They're just going to raise the fee to cover what the costs are. This is the best plan for controlling those costs out of any of the options that were implemented or that were discussed or that have been discussed. I mean, you can go from one extreme to another. I mean, we can talk about if you have a private hauler who comes in and we completely privatize the system. Then you have no recourse. You have no control over that. I mean, and we can talk to other communities throughout the state who are dealing with private haulers, and they will tell you a lot of them are paying in the $20, $30, $50 range a month for that service. I don't want to sit here and say that, you know, we in Frankfort, you know, don't realize what type of service that we have, because I think that we do. And I think from the phone calls that I've gotten, that we do realize the service that we have. But I think that the key here is this service sustainable? Does this service put our city in the best possible position in 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now? Years when my children are here, hopefully at City Hall, talking about other issues. I think that that's got to be what the goal of the commission has to be, is how do we plan long-term? How do we make this a better city, not only from our budget standpoint, but quality of life standpoint, not only now, but into the future and for our children? That's been the driving force for me, and I think it's been the driving force for me throughout this debate. And I thank you all so much. I encourage you to still get in contact with me, but I thank you all for coming and including me in your discussion of this issue as well. Thank you.
Commissioner Waller.
There were just a couple of facts and figures that were tossed out that weren't entirely accurate. I just want to clear them up real quick. It isn't true that all revenue is flat. We've actually been seeing increases in our property values that result in increased ad valorem revenue. We've also seen some unanticipated increases in our insurance premium revenue. That's just a note. The recycling and the cost to the city, right now recycling brings in about $150,000 a year compared to a $300,000 a year fixed cost. So right now recycling does not make money compared to the collection cost. It does save money compared to the actual alternative though, which is sending that same stuff to the landfill. So I mean, we're collecting it, it costs this much, we're getting this much of it back. That's still saving us money compared to collecting trash and then paying even more to get rid of it at the landfill. So it's still, recycling doesn't make money per se, but it is cost effective. That $300,000 is a fixed cost to pick up recycling. So even if we pick up 10 times as much as we're recycling now, that fixed cost will stay at $300,000, but the revenue part of it, the $150,000, would increase and the tipping fees would decrease. So that's, I mean, in terms of the raw numbers, that's an indisputable cost savings to the city. My sense is that the new fee is more fair than the current fee, because under the current fee, I mean, we force people to pay for this service even if they don't use it. I mean, there are empty properties that have to pay the $60 annual fee that never produce any garbage at all. And under this system, the folks who use the service less or not at all don't have to pay a fee. I think that's a lot more fair. We're not just guessing or throwing it at a dartboard when it comes to estimating that most people will pay less under this program. I mean, we've been sending these surveys out. We've gotten a maybe 50% response rate. We haven't finished tabulating it all yet, but we've got actual hard data on that, and it's hard to say whether or not most people are going to go with the small can or the medium can. We're going to have lots of folks who receive the medium cans. We're going to have lots of folks who receive the small cans. Not many folks will receive the large cans. I'd say it's an indisputable fact at this point that under the new system, most people would pay less than they currently do. And in terms of, we've been having this back and forth discussion for 3 years now regarding the state of the city's finances and the state of our reserve, the state of our reserves. Our next, well, I mean, we heard a lot of these same arguments 3 years ago, where a lot of folks who are here today insisted that the revenues didn't look good and that our budget was just barely balancing and that we had to, cut employees' longevity pay and raise the garbage fee and do all this stuff just in order to break even, in order to keep from depleting our reserves. And we brought in an extra $1.3 million in surplus that year. And even while we were pocketing that $1.3 million in excess profits, folks were still insisting that our budget was strapped and that we were endangering our reserve funds and that there just wasn't enough money to go around. Now, these folks knew that we were socking away excess profits to the tune of more than $1 million, but they continued to make this same claim that we're hearing today, which is that revenue doesn't look good, our budget's barely balanced, we're risking depleting our reserves. Folks continue to make that same claim, and the next year we ended up socking away another $1 million in surplus. And our next audit that we will likely approve in early 2012 is going to reveal another $1 million in surplus. So this claim that our budget's just barely balanced and that we're just barely breaking even and that we're endangering our reserves. I mean, this is the third year in a row we've heard this claim, and it was proven false the first time around. The claim was proven false the second time around, and I don't understand how anybody could believe that these same claims are all of a sudden true now, considering the fact that they've been proven, well, considering the fact that they've never been true before. And, you know, I've got stacks of audits and budgets and financial statements right here that prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that we've been socking away that excess revenue, despite a number of people's claims. Having said that, I mean, that doesn't mean that our revenue situation is entirely rosy right now, because we have been taking a number of austerity measures. We've and been making a number of budget cuts, and these budget cuts have consequences. I mean, the previous commission cut about $1 million out of the public safety budget, about $800,000 from the police budget, off the top of my head, and then saw one of the highest murder rates in the city's history. And this commission has restored that funding, and so far the crime rate's looking a lot better. But budget cuts aren't just, I mean, lots of folks, if you ask them, would you rather, pay this fee or make cuts to the budget, will say, we'll make cuts to the budget. But you start getting down to the nitty gritty of what we're going to make cuts to, of whether or not we're going to, sell off city parks, or whether or not we're going to fire police officers, or get rid of some firemen, or, stop paving the streets, etc. That's some heavy stuff. I mean, if we really want to get the city on and sound fiscal footing going forward, we need to start making some considerations and plans for the long term. And I think that the question about what's the future commission going to do, I mean, that's a fair question. But I'll just note that the reason we're in the spot that we're in now, I mean, the reason that our budget, and it's holding steady, but we're not flush. The reason and the reason that we're facing a lot of the financial and economic challenges we are right now is because previous leaders have found it a lot easier to just kick the can down the road instead of making hard decisions, right then and there, and laying groundwork for the future. And these decisions are always hard to make. And so I guess my response to what's the future commission going to do, we're having a hard time now because previous commissions kept kicking the can down the road. I mean, the sewer bill was brought up. That's an excellent point. The feds, about 15 years ago, and Bill remembers this because he was mayor at the time. About 15 years ago, the feds warned us that we were in violation, or maybe, I guess the state warned us that we were in violation of federal law because of the nature of our combined sewer system. It has a tendency to overflow and pour raw sewage into the river and back it up into some neighborhoods. Completely illegal. And we were told, and you're all going to have to fix this problem. And it's an expensive fix, but we were told we were going to have to fix the problem. And they gave us 10 years to deal with it, and we didn't do anything for 10 years until they finally came in and said, all right, fine. They sued us. They've got a court order, and we're now being ordered by the courts to fix our effectively illegal sewer system. But that's the kind of thing. It would have been a difficult decision when we were first warned to go ahead and start addressing that problem and incremental steps there with a long-term plan there. But it didn't happen. The plan got kicked down the road, and that's part of the reason sewer rates are increasing now. Or just take the public safety building, for example. It's no secret that the millions of dollars that were wasted on the public safety building are part of the reason our reserves and budget are in the state they're in now. And I'll even remind folks of the public safety building. I mean, you talk about a lack of planning, a lack of fiscal insight. The public safety building was built in violation of the city's own zoning laws without a plan for parking. And that mistake alone cost us $1 million over the course of just 1 month. And that $1 million wasn't just used to build a parking lot, it was built to tear down tax-paying businesses. I mean, but the point of the matter is that it would be a lot easier for us right now to say, you know what, this is too complicated, 2 years isn't enough time to put something like this together and to get it implemented, and to just kick the can down the road. We can do that. Then previous commissions are going to face even harder decisions in order to keep things solvent and keep things moving forward. I mean, no matter what, we have a hard decision to face right now. And at this point, I think even kicking the can down the road and just keeping things the way they are and burying our heads in the sand, that's a hard decision for me to make right now. But some folks want us to do that. I get that. But that just makes the next difficult decision for future commissions even more difficult. At some point, somebody's got to, at some point the commission has to start taking responsibility for the future of the city. At some point, city leaders have to start making decisions that aren't just politically easy now, but that actually take the city's long-term fiscal future into account. or we're just going to keep dancing the same dance over and over and over again and just keep, ducking from one budgetary crisis to the other while everything keeps crumbling around us. I mean, we've got to step up and take responsibility for the future, one way or the other. And for what it's worth, I do think we have plenty of time still to continue taking some of these very legitimate concerns into account, like hardship exemptions and landlord-tenant city relationships. And we've got time to take that stuff into account. But let's be honest, I mean, if we don't get this done this term, it doesn't get done, right?
Right.
I mean, that's just all there is to it. And as hard as this decision might be to make now, making it next July in the middle of a campaign season, and I don't know who's running again, or any of that, but I think anybody would be naive to think that decision is going to be easier to make in 6 months rather than more difficult.
Okay, has I think everyone's had a chance to speak. We've had a good discussion here. We appreciate you all being here and raising these questions, and as you can tell, there's going to be there's going to probably be some more discussion going on here. And the comments about the budget, you probably will know, and whenever I say something, somebody else comes back and counter it. They say something, I would like to counter it, but I'm not going to do it. So we're going to move on. If you don't mind, we'll conclude the citizens' comments and our discussion regarding your questions, and we'll move on now to the ordinances. So, Mr. Moore.
Thank you all for coming.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you all very, very
What was
much.
the second? I believe some people will be leaving here and we'll get out. Okay, we have now here ordinances, Mr. Moore.
Ordinance 4.1, by title, an ordinance amending Frankfort Code of Ordinances, Chapter 32, Section 32.03, meetings. Summary, this ordinance provides that as of November 1, 2011, the Board of Commissioners will meet in work session, on the second Monday of each month at 5 p.m., a work session on the third Monday of each month at 12:30 p.m., and meet in a voting meeting on the fourth Monday of each month at 5 p.m.
Okay, do I have a motion for approval of ordinance 4.1? Commissioner Hiddens, you have a second. Commissioner Turner, in discussion, please call the roll.
Commissioner Wilder?
Yes.
Commissioner Hadden?
Yes.
Commissioner Turner?
Yes.
Commissioner May?
Yes.
Mayor Graham?
Yes, so ordinance 4.1 is approved. Mr. Moore.
Ordinance 4.2, title, an ordinance amending Section 37.10, health, dental, life insurance, and deferred compensation of the City of Frankfort Code of Ordinances. Summary, this ordinance allows contributions into a health reimbursement account for employees or elected officials waiving city health plan coverage.
Okay, if that objection, we will accept the first reading 4.2. Okay.
Ordinance 4.3, an ordinance to amend the City of Frankfort's Code of Ordinances, Chapter 152, by amending the City of Frankfort's zoning regulations, Article 9, Flood Damage Prevention Ordinance, Section 9.4.2, Duties and Responsibilities of the Local Administrator, and Section 9.7, Definitions of the City of Frankfort's zoning ordinance. Summary. This ordinance amends the city's zoning ordinance, Article 9, Flood Damage Prevention Ordinance, Section 9.4.2, Duties and Responsibilities of the Local Administrator, and Section 9.7, Definitions of the City of Frankfort's zoning ordinance as requested by the Division of Water.
Okay, if that objection, we will accept the first reading 4.3. Okay. Now we're down to orders. There being none. Resolutions, Mr. Owens.
I have a resolution to authorize the mayor to sign a resolution that joined their agreement between the Kentucky Public Employees Deferred Comp Authority and the City of Frankfort. This authorizes the mayor to sign the agreement and administer tax advantage savings accounts for employees in the city.
Okay, do I have a motion for approval of Resolution 6.1? Commissioner May. Second, Commissioner Hedden. Any questions, comments? Okay, call the roll.
Commissioner Wilder?
Yes.
Commissioner Hadden?
Yes.
Commissioner Turner?
Yes.
Commissioner May?
Yes.
Mayor Graham?
Yes, so Resolution 6.1 is adopted. Now we're down to the consent calendar. Mr. Gordon.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 7.1, to authorize the mayor to sign the collateral surety agreement with the Community Trust Bank Finance Department. This is to comply with the request of the city's auditors, and it's in our finance department. Item 7.2, to authorize contract with the National Processing Company to provide debit and credit card services for Juniper Hill Golf Course, Parks and Recreation, and the Finance Department. This would change the service from the current provider to National Processing Company. The expected savings of the vendor change to National Processing is expected to save the city approximately $1,700 per year, or over $5,000 for the 3-year term. Item 7.3, authorization to award a bid to Bob Hook Chevrolet for one 4-wheel drive crew cab 2012 Chevrolet Silverado work truck for the sewer department. This will replace Unit 97, which is a 1999 utility truck that has almost 100,000 miles on it. Item 7.4, to authorize the mayor to sign a joint funding agreement with the U.S. Geological Survey for the sewer department operating the gauging station upstream of Block 4 on the Kentucky River. Item 7.5, to surplus cell phones and sell by sealed bid. The purpose of this item is to declare as surplus cell phones that are no longer functional, and the items will be publicly advertised and sold by sealed bid. This is through the sewer department. Item 7.6, to authorize the sewer extension contract with Kentucky Fabe Environmental Services, LLC, on Duncan Road in Franklin County, Kentucky, and to authorize the mayor to sign all documents related to this contract. Item 7.7, authorization to amend a professional services contract to Jordan Jones and Goulding, JJG, also known as Jacobson Engineering, for design of the Two Creeks Sewer Collection System and Pump Station, and to authorize the mayor to sign all documents related to this amendment. The total additional cost for amendment number 4 will be $42,377, bringing the total contract to $400,345. Item 7.8, to authorize an amendment of engineering services agreement with URS Corporation for design services to replace an under-capacity sewer line along Slickway Branch near US 60 and I-64, and to authorize the mayor to sign all documents related to this amendment. The amendment is for negotiation of easements for this project in the amount of $5,700. This will bring the total contract to $103,080. Item 7.9, to authorize contract award to Instaform Technologies Incorporated for the rehabilitation of approximately 4,000 feet of sanitary sewer mains in the Juniper Hill subdivision, and to authorize the mayor to sign all documents related to this contract. Item 7.10, to authorize an amendment to the option agreement entered into between the city and Frankfort Plant Board concerning the purchase of the Carpenter Farm property to extend the option period for an additional 90 days. I think we were in receipt of that passage by the Plant Board in a prior meeting of theirs. Item 7.11, to approve the letter of engagement and agreement to retain Sturgill, Barker, and Maloney, PLLC, to represent the city of Frankfort in the workers' compensation case filed by firefighter Danny Simonis, and authorize the mayor to sign all related documents. Item 7.12, to authorize a bid award to Beckman Environmental Services Company Incorporated, BESCO, to purchase variable speed drive for the Capitol Avenue pump station, and to authorize the mayor to sign all documents related to this purchase. The pump controls at the Capitol Avenue pump station are over 30 years old, and they have exceeded their design life. Parts are difficult to obtain, and the department has identified only 2 companies in the United States that still provide this services. Item 7.13, to ratify an emergency purchase order with Tecta American Zero Company to repair the roof over the fire department. Subject to the commission approval, the emergency purchase order in the amount of $49,950 plus 5% contingency. A budget amendment will be required at a future date to account for this emergency repair. Item 7.14, to authorize a bid award to ADE Contracting for the Wilson Boulevard Bicycle and Pedestrian Trail Project. This will complete the remaining portion of the trail either this fall or next spring, depending upon the weather. The city received 4 bids that range from a high of $275,331.75 to a low of $230,565.25, which was submitted by ADE. Item 7.15, personnel actions. Appointment of David Haino to Sewer Department, the sewer operator. Appointment Jonathan Mitchell to Fire and EMS as Firefighter 1. Appointment Ty Camp, Fire and Emergency Management Services as Firefighter 1. A resignation, Nathan Hammond from the Police Department resigned as Telecommunicator 1 to return to part-time parks. Authorized payments for accrued leave. Resignation of Jerry Houghton, Fire and EMS Services as Firefighter EMT 3. A retirement, as we heard earlier, David Dearborn from the Police Department, Police Officer, Patrol Officer 3. And then there's permission to make one conditional job offer for the position of Patrol Officer 1 in order to continue in-depth background investigations of candidates. The position is to replace an officer who has retired. This conditional job offer is contingent upon successful completion of physical, psychological, polygraph, and drug screen examinations. Also, permission to make one conditional job officer for the position of Telecommunicator 1 in order to continue in-depth background investigation of a candidate. The position is to replace a telecommunicator who resigned. This conditional job officer is contingent upon successful completion of psychological, polygraph, and drug screen examinations. And that concludes the...
Okay, do I have a motion for approval of the consent calendar? Commissioner May, you gotta have second?
I can say.
Okay, Commissioner Turner? I think that's right, one of you anyway. Okay, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Weiler?
Yes.
Commissioner Hadden?
Yes?
Commissioner Turner?
Yes.
Commissioner May?
Yes.
Mayor Grant?
Yes, so the consent calendar is approved. Next on is the board appointments, there being none. And then next on item is old business. Do we have old business? Commissioner Wilder.
Regarding the garbage fee and some of the discussion that was held earlier in this meeting, I guess I'd like to request a report from staff on how other cities that provide rollout carts handle liability. I know that Lexington distributes rollout carts to their citizens, so they might be a good place to turn to see how these liability questions are addressed. But do you think you all could look into that and give us a report back at our next work session? Our next scheduled work session is in like 3 weeks, so that should be plenty of time. Do we want to ask for any homework to be done in regards to hardship exemptions, or do we just want to pick that discussion up at the next work session? There was also a question about the most appropriate way to handle hardship exemptions. I think there are 2 types of, as we've all discussed, there are really 2 types of hardship. Some of them are financial and some of them are physical. And I think we've already discussed, I think we've already seen some plans on the table regarding physical hardship, as in allowing folks to simply use bags instead of cans if they want, or, using multiple small cans perhaps, et cetera. So I think we've already got some plans for addressing the physical hardships. But do we just want to pick up a discussion of the financial hardship at the next meeting, or is there any homework we want to direct staff to handle for us in the meantime?
I guess if they know of any other city that may have anything that goes toward hardships, economical as well, not just at a poverty level, but as in like a short term, such as someone may have a new baby, or they may have multiples, or they may have a new family member living with them for a short term? Or what if there's apartments that are sitting empty for a short term? Maybe they're trying to revamp their buildings, and they need to put their money into their property versus the money that's going to the trash system. I mean, I guess there's a couple planes that we could look at, but if we can try to get some information, and I'll do my homework as well.
So to clarify, is the question for staff to look into whether or not other communities
Have something.
provide accommodations for special circumstances and economic hardships? And I guess the question doesn't necessarily need to relate to garbage fees, right?
Mhm.
I mean, because the dynamic of that could theoretically apply to any number of fees.
You could.
I know that's kind of I know that's a lot of homework, but you think you all can give us some idea in 3 weeks of whether or not there is even a precedent for doing things that way, and how some other communities maybe handle special circumstances and hardship? Well, there's no precedent locally, but we might get a sense for what has or hasn't worked in other communities. That's really the best we can do, right? And I guess my last question on this is when can we expect to see a draft of the parameters that have been set so far? We discussed this at the last meeting and kind of rehashed all the parameters that have been set by the commission over the last few months, in the hopes of actually getting an informal document in one place that can answer a lot of people's questions. Do we have a timeline on that? And this is separate from a draft ordinance. Oh, whoever can answer it. I'm pretty open to suggestion. Yeah.
We have prepared a draft ordinance.
Okay.
That Jeff and Tom and I have worked on. And I'm not sure that it addresses each of the parameters that were discussed at our last meeting. But I think that Jeff and Tom and I could have a meeting, and then with the city manager as well, and get you all something to look at prior to the next work session. It may be somewhat rough, but it'll at least give you something to look at.
Sure. In terms of getting an informal list of the parameters that have been set so far, that's something that we've agreed would be very helpful to the folks working on this discussion, and to keep everybody kind of up to speed when they might miss a meeting or whatnot. And also in terms of communicating with the press and the public, the proposed parameters. We already discussed this in the last work session. Without objection, I'd be happy to prepare that. I guess any of us could just prepare that informal list and share it with the public. So maybe I'll just do that. But yeah, I'd appreciate seeing a draft copy, preferably with some time to digest it.
Right, we'll try and give you we'll give it to you Thursday before the work session, because that'll give you the weekend, and then, is that long enough?
I guess we can, yeah.
We'd kind of like to, it'd be nice to have the list of the informal parameters that you're going to prepare, Commissioner Wilder, so that if there's something that needs to be tweaked before we give it to you, we can do that.
Well, without objection, I'll review the video of our last commission discussion and just prepare a list of parameters and questions that have been discussed and settled on by a majority of the commission as a whole. And I'll keep my own 2 cents out of it. And then I'll share that, without objection, I'll share that with everybody, so we have it in writing. Great, that's all I have in terms of actual business.
Okay, any other old business? Yeah, Commissioner Hitchens.
Just to add one more thing with the garbage, a printout of possible financially what we're looking at with the request forms that have been received.
Oh, you mean the results of the request form?
Right.
Sure.
You have it?
You want to come from
Okay.
Mr. Heckmark?
I didn't realize we had finished processing that.
Well, this is an up-to-date but not a complete report, right?
That's correct. This
It's
is
our most current data.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Thanks, Jeff.
So this is how many of each parts we
This
would
is what we've ever
distribute?
received today.
Thank you to you and your staff.
Yes.
Does this include all the folks who are getting the 65 by default?
No,
Okay.
that's just as we've opened them today, and that's our number today at the end of the day.
And we've only gotten 4,637.
We do.
Roughly half of what we're expecting.
Mr. Hackler, would you please go to Mike and then maybe just point out what
To date, we've received 4,600 responses to the surveys. We sent out approximately 8,000. What that number is, we have around 11,600 units, residential units in the city. But many units are owned by one person, so like when it comes to apartments, that's kind of the reason why the numbers are a little different. But as of today's date, we've opened up 4,600 responses, so over 50%.
That's more than I thought we'd get personally. I thought we'd get less than that.
Less than a 50% response,
Yes,
right?
I really did.
Well, and I think, as I recall, last meeting, it was mentioned that we were seeing a response rate for the 35 gallon. That up-to-date meeting, or report, was in the 80, looking towards roughly 80%. I'm seeing now, it's looking like it's down to 64%, so it looks like that trend may be going down a little bit too, as we get more of these in, or opening more of these. Is that?
Well, as the numbers show today, what the 21st was last Friday, so our had to be postmarked by last Friday. So today we received the mail, I assume, from last Friday as well. And they may trickle in either tomorrow or the next day, but essentially I believe that's a pretty good idea of what the orders will be. So given that information, there's going to be, the default size will be the remainder.
Right, so if you say
default size will be the big one.
There's roughly 8,500, that you're waiting to get back. If we get another
3,500 to get back.
Waiting on 3,500 to get back.
Approximately.
So
we're waiting on responses for 7,000 units.
Okay, so it's quite likely that number is going to balance out a lot more, once we move it to default. Is that right?
I believe the majority will be the middle size.
Okay.
If these were the final numbers, then as of right now, we'd be looking at roughly 4,637 35-gallon cans, 8,420 65-gallon cans, and just a few hundred 95-gallon cans. Thanks, guys.
Yeah,
I know you've been putting a lot of work into this.
Thank you all so much.
And can I add, Mayor, on this? And I just want to take a moment to really thank the Solid Waste or Sanitation Department and Public Works. I mean, they put in extra hours here. I know Tom's probably worn out. I'm sure him and Jeff are probably so tired of talking trash that they, they probably dream about it at night. I don't know if it's like me. But I just want to take a moment. I really appreciate all your all's hard work, your staff, everybody in your all's department. It really is. You all have been, for the last year, have been challenged with helping to develop a pay-as-you-throw system and what it would look like here in Frankfort, and looking at what other communities are doing. And I just really want to say that I appreciate everything that you all have done and the hard work that you continue to do.
Okay. I did have one other question, a piece of business that I actually forgot to address. Oh, do you still have some?
Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you. In regards to the bid process, I passed some information along to staff earlier in the week. We've been under the impression that there aren't any state contracts available that might allow us to, save time and money in regards to the traditional bid process. I dug one up by way of the trip I took down to Nashville a while ago, and shared it with staff, and I think they've been looking into the feasibility of it. Do y'all have anything to report on that, one way or the other?
We're just going to move you up here, Jeff.
Right.
Yes, we have communicated with the state. There is a state price contract out for recycling rollouts, which can be used for either, the different colors, but it's essentially the same cart. And we are eligible to piggyback, I guess, their state price contract. We've actually contacted one of the vendors that's listed on their state master contract. And yes, we are eligible, and they could accommodate an order from the city for the large number that we would need. And he gave us a price list. We get a discount, so it's roughly between $35 and $50 a cart. Ballpark. So.
And am I correct in understanding that if we were to
That is an option.
If we were to go that route, the carts would cost us less than $1 million total? Is that a fair?
Well, we are still compiling our numbers of
Sure.
what the order would look like, but we do have the pricing list from the state price contract to give you that answer.
A question. Now, that, what you're talking about with the state, that will expedite turnaround time. From the time you order them, you get them back in faster, right?
That's correct.
But in terms of cost, we don't know the difference? I mean,
State price
savings or cost more, right?
Yeah, that's one question, is the state price contract gives you, that's a known, because that's good for a year.
Yeah.
If we go through the process of an open bid or a closed bid, I don't know what that price would be, so it might be, depending on petroleum prices or, that fluctuates. But we do know that the master contract is a fixed price for a year.
And at some point we'll will we know definitively which route will be most cost effective? Or we just gonna have to, if we put this out to bid, do we still have the option to go with the state contract if it's more cost effective?
Till you open bids, you don't know what that bid
Sure.
price is gonna be, so.
Right.
But you can get a feel for what the market is today versus when they did this master contract.
Sure.
You probably get a pretty good feel if it's, what's more cost effective.
So
But the big issue with this master contract is timing. You
Sure.
can place an order
Much more time effective.
tomorrow
Yeah.
versus going through the bidding process. There's gonna be some time for advertising and go through the hoops and hurdles of the bidding process.
What's the plan going forward in terms of determining which option is more cost effective? Is it to just do market research or to go through a part of the bid process? But I'm just
Well, I don't know what
Yeah.
if we did a closed bid and open, I don't know what that price is. There's no
Sure.
way for me to determine what.
Understood.
However, I guess the big advantage, I think the prices will be close. It's just a matter of we can order the cans through the master contract and get those cans to the residents quicker via the master contract than the bidding process.
Or alternatively, buy ourselves even more time for discussion and get the cans to the residents at roughly the same time. You see what I'm saying? Isn't that time saving can come out of it could come out of either end. But the big question for me is what's gonna be the most cost effective? Do you think you can do some market research and get some, without going through a bid process, get some idea of what we might expect the market to say right now?
I can get an answer of ballpark how much, if we bought them, if we did a bid today, what, given the market, I can give you a ballpark and we can compare that to the master contract. Is that?
I think that would be really helpful information.
Okay.
That would help a lot. Thanks a lot, Joe.
Commissioner May.
Yeah, I just wanted to congratulate Officer Dearborn on his retirement. I should have said something earlier, but I neglected to do that. And he's a very fine individual, had a stellar career, and we appreciate his family and all of his support over the years and wish him luck.
Okay, any new business? Is there anyone in the mood to adjourn this meeting?
No.
You got a motion from Roger. You got a second from Mr. Hedden.
I was the one who does the motion to adjourn.
Commissioner Wilder?
Sure.
Commissioner Hadden?
Yes.
Commissioner Turner?
Yes.
Mr. May?
Yes.
Mayor Graham?
Yes,